Yes, you. Do you dread waking up in the morning? Are you feeling helpless in your society? Perhaps even a bit lost? Well, look no further. At the Capitol, we offer an escape, a new beginning, a lifetime of unending joy. We have an abundance of attractions so captivating, you'll wonder how you ever lived without them. Let's take a look, shall we?
Line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
You might be wondering, what's the cost for such a paradise? Well, dear viewer, some prices aren't paid in gold or silver. We only ask you for one thing: your identity. We'll need the very core of who you are. It's a small price for a lifetime of unending joy, don't you think? And no need to fear crime or violence. We'll always keep an eye on you. For your safety. Welcome back to Spot the Odd One Out. Remember, in the Capitol, wearing a smile is the norm. However, a few seem to occasionally slip up. No worries. This is your golden opportunity. If you see someone forgetting their grin, report them to us and stand a chance to win fabulous rewards. We'll make sure to turn their frown upside down.
The end of human-dominated history. History will continue with somebody else in control.
I mean, what a way to start a video, huh? Anyway, I have been very busy the last couple weeks with just, general life stuff. But we've had a hell of a time lately, haven't we? A lot of crazy stuff has been happening. So, with that being said, I do have to catch up on global events, and the plan is for you to come with me. We had the UN General Assembly, Climate Week, the Clinton Foundation is back, and that is just the beginning. We're going to get into all of it and more. Now, this was a big time for the global agenda, and really, it all kicked off with the UN declaring an information war.
Of course, firings at Twitter have left us with no one to call to flag content that is abusive or even incitement to violence. We're now seeing that almost anyone can promote disinformation for the price of a blue tick. So it's not all bad. We have teamed up with the platforms to elevate reliable information around COVID and climate, to amplify trusted messengers, and we have quite an army of them out there who want to take UN content and promote it within their followings, and also educating users on how to slow the spread of disinformation. Our new slogan that we want to have everybody have in their ear when they're online is pause, take care before you share. But yet we do feel like we are in an information war and that we need to massively ramp up our response. So we're creating at the UN a central capacity to monitor and also have the ability to rapidly react when mis and disinformation and hate speech is threatening not just our people, our operations, but also the issues and the causes that we're working on. But also we're going to be gearing up our verified initiative around climate change and developing this UN code of conduct on information integrity on digital platforms, hoping to set global standards that we can all advocate around so that we can collectively work for a more humane internet.
Personally, I have no idea how anyone could buy into this nonsense when 99% of everything we are told is a lie, a manipulation, or an exaggeration, all perpetuated by the gatekeepers too. Can anyone give one instance of them being 100% honest with the public? No, they cannot. But sure, let them dictate what is truth and what is not. Sounds like a great plan.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And the thing is that this is becoming the norm with these great reset nations too. The Irish are dealing with a ton of draconian speech laws right now, some that just recently passed. Canada, as we know, Australia, New Zealand of course, and now the UK has the Internet Safety Bill. This has completely bypassed public consent and has tossed them into the heap of authoritarian regimes. Well, to be honest, they've been there for a long time. People will cast doubt on how tyrannical this will get, but just you wait. Just you wait. And naturally, I do hope I'm wrong. However, do not be mistaken. The United States is dealing with this too. As if I have to tell you that, right? Anyway, a lawsuit is currently ongoing about the censorship efforts of the U.S. establishment in conjunction with social media companies. The Missouri versus Biden case has proven a whole-of-government approach to illegal censorship. It is certainly a rat's nest. This court case has revealed at least 67 federal employees representing a dozen agencies are involved with this scheme. And perhaps it's exposing one of the biggest conspiracies in the history of our country. Par for the course these days, a new conspiracy is proven true quite often. But anyway, we now know that every facet of the US government, including its intelligence agencies, have been involved in illegal and unconstitutional censorship. So just take a look at the government agencies that are implicated. Everyone you can think of is on here, and even some that you wouldn't expect. The Census Bureau, yeah, I mean, what is the Census Bureau doing censoring people's speech? Okay, let me try to gather myself a little bit. Apparently, the Census Bureau was using social media backdoors to take down posts they did not like. I mean, what kind of memes would piss off the Census Bureau? Some of the other agencies involved are the FBI, Health and Human Services, the State Department, the DOJ, CDC, FDA, and on and on and on. So, on the private side, of course, they are the usual companies that we all loathe because they are used for the sole purpose of government overreach. So we have Google, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, Pinterest, Verizon Media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Microsoft, and the Wikimedia Foundation. But get this. The evidence shows that the government and big tech held monthly meetings and they called themselves the Unified Strategies Group. At these meetings, they would discuss what topics are to be censored and suppressed. So just remember this all ties back to the World Economic Forum because, of course it does, right? Back in 2020, I believe, the World Economic Forum initiated a new public-private partnership with big tech and governments from around the world. The purpose was to identify and uproot all opinions from the internet that it considers quote-unquote harmful. Yes, anything that is deemed to be against their agenda will be targeted for censorship. It has nothing to do with the truth. Do not be fooled about that. And really, if you think about it, it's only going to get even more heavy-handed in the years to come, too. Some may call this fear-mongering, but look, if we had a bunch of good information to go over, I would. The fact is, we just have a lot of terrible things happening all the time, one after the other. I have no choice but to talk about it. If you close your eyes, stop listening, stop paying attention, then you will be steamrolled. They will destroy everything you love. Just keep in mind, the reasons for the censorship go well beyond domestic politics. As Klaus Schwab says, you cannot dissent. And I quote, "We live in democracies with elections every 4 years. And therefore, unfortunately, politicians think about next election rather than the next generation. You can have political differences on a number of issues, but not SDG, climate change, poverty, or hunger." End of quote. Ah yes, there are some topics that every nation must get behind. It's, of course, the global agenda. You might even hear people push back against what I'm saying with something like, every government should be against things like poverty and hunger. And yeah, you're right. But you don't seem to understand that they are lying about this to you. They are making every crisis worse, exasperating each crisis as a way to exert more control over the global transition. However, let's just move on, because I don't need to explain that to you, and let's face it, someone who disagrees is not going to watch this video at all. So, yeah, let's just keep going. So, before I got off on the censorship topics, we were talking about how the UN declared this new information war, and it was right in time for a big campaign push. So you may be asking yourself, how did this new propaganda campaign kick off? Well, it started with the UN light show in New York City to start Climate Week. Oh, isn't tyranny pretty? But then get this, right after that, the very next day, a bunch of activists in different states coordinated protests, marches, and disruption events, almost as if they were planned to go hand in hand. And so the question is, was it organic planning from activists or planned action from UN-backed groups? You can take the lead on that one and use your own judgment. So anyway, climate change protesters blocked the entrance to the Federal Reserve in Manhattan. The NYPD was arresting them en masse. Now, to be honest, I'm a little conflicted. The climate agenda is a mirage. A Trojan horse is probably a better description, and is going to lead to abject tyranny around the world. But I do kind of like seeing people protest the Fed, I'm not gonna lie. But alas, it's still leading to the removal of basic human freedom, so I'm still not on your side, dummies. But yeah, they were partaking in civil disruption at various banks in the US too. However, in reality, this happened all around the world. And in my opinion, it's clearly coordinated. Now, in general, I am pretty shocked at how bad these climate groups, the UN, various governments around the world, I'm just truly shocked at how terrible they are at PR and marketing. Now, I'm not going to give them any ideas because I vehemently disagree with their agenda, but damn, are they terrible at this. Not only are they unable to string a coherent argument together, but when they try to appeal to emotion, they also fail. You would really think they would be better at this stuff. Now, of course, I do have to entertain the idea that I am entirely wrong about this. And in fact, they actually are very good at propaganda. I mean, they do have a lot of people believing that the world will end unless they agree to carbon markets, social credit, and giving up complete control over their life. So, I don't know, perhaps they are way better. Perhaps they are pretty good at propaganda. Anyway, the point is that, in my opinion, it's all a big lie. Here's a recent clip of John Kerry's daughter talking about the great narrative they are building.
The pandemic was an opportunity. I think over the world, people realize how important health was. How now do we take that emotion of the health factor is so critical? But guess what, guys? The climate crisis is creating more health issues than you can ever imagine, but no one has been able to make that link in the past. So I think we are living in an age now, at a time now, where we need to grasp these opportunities and work together and really build on that, right? And
I want to ask you a question about that for a moment, though, because you're right. I feel the same way about COVID, taught us all these lessons learned, and we should be incorporating that. And the climate crisis is going to be so much worse. But I believe we were talking a little before we started the panel about people forgotten and don't care. So how do we keep that front and center?
So, you're absolutely right. We were just talking about it earlier, that have people forgotten about COVID? Right, so I think it's about the storytelling element. I think that a lot of the things we say on health are very doom and gloom, very, very much, even on the climate issues, right? So to the extent that people feel that I can't deal with this anymore, I can't do this, but telling really inspiring stories about what is possible if we work together. So similarly, I think with the climate crisis, we've got to bring those stories out, that sense of possibility.
The pandemic was an opportunity. How we take that emotion and apply it to the climate crisis. How do we keep that front and center? It's about storytelling. Yes, it's not about fact, it's about storytelling. So, okay then, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here, don't even think about the implications of that statement, and do not think about how this applies to their more insane statements.
Our focus here is on climate solutions, and our task is urgent. Humanity has opened the gates of hell.
Humanity has opened the gates of hell. The art of storytelling. Yeah, okay, you dramatic bastard. So, what's next on their new information war? Well, they have some new ads coming out on social media. Their latest marketing strategy is going pretty hard, as I have seen a ton of these 2030 ads across many different platforms. And on top of that, an email must have gone out to all world leaders because it appears as if they're trying to test out some new taglines. As you can see here, Antonio Guterres from the UN is trying out some new lines, and I quote, "We cannot effectively address problems as they are, if institutions do not reflect the world as it is." Antonio Guterres goes on to say that he is making a call to renew multilateral institutions based on 21st century economic and political realities. So, I kind of get the feeling that the 21st century is apparently being tested as a possible new tagline. Now, it is the same as Agenda 2030, but I'm starting to think those phrases may have been tainted by the truth. All I know is that it's no coincidence that we are seeing this across multiple accounts. The thing is, though, is that you should not let Joe Biden be the one to test out some new lines, because he can't speak, so it did not go well.
Simply put, the 21st century results are badly needed. They're needed to move us along. That starts with the United Nations, starts right here in this room.
And so, on that note, the Pentagon came out and said that U.S. officials with dementia may pose national security threats. And to me, things are getting pretty bad when the Pentagon is researching stuff like that. However, that does bring us to the UN General Assembly and the speeches. And so, let's see what they're talking about. And let's continue with Joe Biden. First off, I want to say we have a huge problem with the media. Reporters in the White House consistently edit what was actually said because most of the time it's just mumbled nonsense. Let me show you what I mean. This is what he was supposed to say, and I quote, "Now, even as we evolve our institutions and drive creative new partnerships, let me be clear, certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct." And let's play the clip.
Now, even as we evolve our institutions and drive creative new partnerships, let me be clear. Certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct.
I mean, the crazy thing is, people are going to read the transcript or articles in the media and be like, wow, Joe Biden is really lucid, and he's pretty on point. No, he is not. Everything is a big lie. That whole speech was brutal to watch, really, it was. And then, of course, right after the speech, you go on social media and you see all these hacks say how strong he appeared. Democracy's in the right hands. It's comical, it's laughable. It's a case study in superfluous absurdity. But anyway, let's try to connect a few dots. So, after Antonio Guterres claimed that we opened the gates of hell, he went on to say in his speech that governments must push the global financial system towards climate action. That means putting a price on carbon, taxing you for simply being alive, and of course overhauling business models so they can leverage more private finance at reasonable cost to developing countries. And so there we have it. Once again, we come across the merging of government and corporation. Everything is so insane. It's interesting that they are trying to implement a fascist system around the world while celebrating Nazis also around the world. It makes you wonder just how deep Operation Paperclip went, huh? But yeah, how crazy was that Canadian Nazi thing? That right there blew my mind. And do not believe for 1 second that no one bothered to look into this guy until after the ceremony. They just think you're stupid and will buy anything. Of course they knew. So this Nazis SS unit committed various massacres against Jews, Poles, Czechs, Slovaks, and Soviet partisans during their operation in collaboration with the Nazis. They were executing civilians. And now they're going to try and paint anyone talking about this as just simply pushing Russian talking points. Again, they think everyone is stupid. And it's ironic. But why would Zelensky and Ukraine want to honor this dude too? His unit killed Ukrainian citizens. But I know, I got sidetracked. The point I was trying to get at is that Joe Biden's speech followed the same exact tropes as Antonio Guterres. It's the same exact plan. And really, most people do not realize the scope of this. If you bring up one of their charts on SDG, well, you can see that underpinning each of these sustainable development goals is the government controlling social dimensions, environmental factors, governance systems, and economic aspects. This ties into stakeholder capitalism, public-private partnerships, the merging of government and corporation with a heavy focus on transnational corporations. This is full government control. These so-called charts on SDG, well, they map out everything. All you have to do is read it. But most people just hear it's for the environment and stop looking into any details, which is exactly why they use that messaging. That's the reason. But anyway, from there, Joe Biden also announced that the US is funding the World Bank with $25 billion. Now, okay, so I was a little confused by this, and let me explain. There's a few possibilities to go over. So, what could this $25 billion go towards? Well, it could be Operation Lockstep, financing Agenda 2030 SDGs, and making sure all nations move together towards this collectivist future. It could be a desperate attempt to perpetuate the liberal economic order. As you know, with the petrodollar, as that wanes, we need to spread cash around to maintain its use as the global reserve currency. Could it also be a setup for the West versus East, a world war scenario? So I have a question. Could the World Bank handle wartime loans to its allies with interest being paid back to the United States? And on that one, I genuinely do not know. The origins of the World Bank is an interesting tale, how they used it to control France in multiple ways. And they were kind of competing with the UN, trying to convince countries to take out loans with the World Bank instead of the United Nations. However, from there, we have a ton of weird stuff happening in Africa. Lots of destabilization going on there. And they all had a visit from Victoria Nuland. So that money could be used to assert control in that region. And I bring that up because in 2015, the World Bank did start a new program called the Millennium Development Goals. And they started this in, of course, Africa. Because, yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? Anyway, officially they say this is to oppose China's rising influence on the global stage. So I'm guessing it's a combination of everything above, everything we just talked about. In my opinion, all of this is about the BRIC system versus the West's new carbon-based system. But then get this is crazy. So the Clinton Global Initiative decided to get back into some money laundering and restarted their operations. They held this event with the Pope, Alex Soros, and Gavin Newsom was there for some reason. The Clinton Global Initiative is going to quote-unquote rebuild Ukraine. Yes, all of these people are paying for the destruction of Ukraine, and then are going to make some profits on rebuilding Ukraine. Oh, who could have guessed? Well, if you understand history, you'll know this is a part of their playbook and have done this kind of bait and switch during every major war. From destroying nations and rebuilding them, or from funding both sides of a conflict. And I quote, "Humanity has opened the gates of hell." Antonio Guterres was right about that, but I mean it in a different way. And now, this is where it gets very, very crazy. So check this out. The Clintons are going to quote-unquote rebuild Ukraine. And then right after that, Zelensky comes out and begs spirit cooker Marina Abramovic to be ambassador to Ukraine and also to help rebuild schools. Wherever Clinton goes, spirit cooking goes with her. Yes, what a great idea. Why don't we get the Satanist spirit cooker to rebuild schools? I mean, what's next? Are we going to create an organization to find missing kids from war-torn Ukraine and put John Podesta in charge of it? I mean, my God, man. What are we doing? Okay, what's next? Sorry about that, I'm still kind of reeling from the spirit cooker news. I mean, what the hell is happening? That's crazy. Anyway, Zelensky was also at the UN General Assembly telling the world that we're failing on our climate change objectives. And of course, he's going to start talking about climate change. Ukraine has been sold off to BlackRock, the United States, and now the Clinton Global Foundation. Yes, Ukraine 2030 is their plan.
Let's look 8 years ahead. 2030. The history of the new Ukraine is studied all over the globe. Why? Because Ukraine became the most digital and convenient country in the world. Scripts have replaced bureaucrats. 500,000 former public servants are successfully integrated in the new economy. No more red tape, but paperless. No more banknotes, but cashless. Yes, we became the first country to abandon paper money.
Yes, Ukraine is set to be the technocratic hub for the global establishment, at least in that section of the world. Climate change is simply a manipulation for their economic plan. People just hear it's for the environment and their brains kind of shut off. Think about the global economic system, which no one seems to do. It's based on fossil fuels. Therefore, climate change is inherently economic. It's a ruse that leads to total technocratic control. Public-private partnerships, stakeholder capitalism, censorship, mass surveillance leading to predictive policing, facial recognition, digital IDs, it's all a part of the climate narrative. And it's all predicated on starting a carbon-based economic system. So, okay, what's next? Well, Joe Biden launched the American Climate Corps to mobilize 20,000 young people to the front lines of clean energy and climate resilience. This Climate Corps is a paid training program to put young people in the fight against climate change.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Now it's all tied into this clip from Obama.
All the young people out there, as well as those of you who consider yourselves young at heart, I want you to stay angry. I want you to stay frustrated. But channel that anger. Harness that frustration. Keep pushing harder and harder for more and more.
I want you to stay angry. I want you to stay frustrated and channel that anger. Well, it seems to me that they're following Mao's playbook for cultural revolution. They do need to prime the next generation for technocratic systems, don't they? So you may be asking yourself, why are they targeting the young generations? Because they lack critical thinking skills and get caught up in emotional pleas, that's why. Just like Kamala Harris explained her rationale.
What's the other thing we know about this population? And it's a specific phase of life. Remember, age is more than a chronological fact. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
Yeah, they know their young base is stupid. They're the perfect useful idiots. And I'm sorry to any young viewers, but yeah, you might want to start actually thinking about what you're advocating for. Now, I've seen clips like this one making the rounds on social media. A lot of teachers are sounding the alarm.
I'm going to just say this. I teach 7th grade. They are still performing on the 4th grade level.
7th grade English teacher here. I teach in northern Houston, and I teach at one of the more affluent schools. When I tell you that these babies cannot read, they cannot write, and they cannot comprehend, I'm not being funny. I'm being dead serious. It doesn't exist. I have kids constantly asking me, how do I spell window? How do I spell important? How do I spell though? And they be serious. They're dead serious. I could ask them, who is the main character of your story? The story of 4-paragraph story we just read. Can't tell you. They don't know. They don't know. They don't know. It took us 4 weeks to get through how to answer a question in a complete sentence.
Yes, teachers are rightfully concerned about the learning capabilities of the new generation. We are quickly headed towards some kind of idiocracy type of future. We went from this old saying, we don't want a nation of thinkers, we want a nation of workers. And now we have their new saying, we don't want a nation of thinkers, we want a nation of idiot activists. Idiotic revolutionaries who don't understand the world they are destroying and certainly do not understand the world they are helping to create. You want to talk about oppression? Well, your future is going to be full of oppression. Congratulations. Soon, you may have something viable to bitch about. And it's going to be all because of your own doing. And trust me, I will not let you forget it if we go down this path. I mean, the real problem is that they will drag us all down with them. We simply cannot let it happen. It is time to start using your brains and actually think about what you advocate for. And the key to that is teaching them to go beyond the surface level talking points. And I know, that's going to be a tough task. However, do not be discouraged because people are waking up. I think we are actually winning this information war. If they were winning, the propaganda would not be necessary, right? However, that's also why we continue to see people like George Soros pump millions into the fight against disinformation. They cannot have young kids realize they are being lied to. Their entire agenda is depending on brainwashing the youth. In fact, this covers many different subjects. They are sacrificing kids on the altar of this agenda, entirely destroying their cognitive function and making sure they will never be, well-adapted adults. And I quote, new psychology research sheds light on how January 6th Capitol riot impacted mental health. Particularly, Democrats seem to be affected more severely, showing significant signs of declining mental well-being. Yeah, who could have guessed that rampant psyops are a dangerous thing? Well, everyone who has not been brainwashed yet could have told you that. That's not exactly a new thing. Now, the psyops related to population are really getting out of hand. So, do you remember that time in 2009? And I quote, it was the New York meeting of billionaires. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, David Rockefeller, George Soros, Ted Turner, Oprah, Michael Bloomberg, and others. The issues discussed in this quote-unquote top secret meeting included healthcare, education, and by far the most controversial, slowing population growth. And I quote one more time, taking their cues from Bill Gates, they agreed that overpopulation was a priority, end of quote. Well, that is having a massive effect on global population rates. We are not going to have an overpopulation problem. I imagine that Elon Musk is right, and population decline is going to be a bigger issue. And we're going to get into this in a second. However, they are so disassociated from reality that they see the destruction of human reproduction as a good thing. In this article right here, you can see them go from a sane take to a brainwashed take in a matter of seconds. Let's go over the sane part. And I quote, children born today will likely live to see the end of global population growth. Humanity will not reach a plateau and then stabilize. It will begin an unprecedented decline. Now, let's get to the insane part. And I quote again, it would be tempting to welcome depopulation as a boon to the environment, but the pace of depopulation will be too slow for most of our pressing problems, end of quote. Yes, we are on the verge of wiping out the entire human race, but it's still not happening quick enough to satiate our need for mass death. All in the name of climate change, obviously. It is for the environment, of course. However, I would argue that they know this is happening, and they actually want to arbitrarily control human reproduction at all levels. Now, the reason I say that is because of, quite a few things. But the FDA just approved the first human trials for artificial wombs. Can we opt out of this future? Please, I am begging you. Let's opt out. But this new information war on these issues, as the UN declared, is really ramping up, and their talking points are just as ridiculous as you'd expect. So, did you see this new ad from Apple? I don't think I can play it for copyright reasons, but I can show you a little snippet. You have an actress here playing Mother Earth. The condescension is off the charts, and really reinforces this mode of scientism. I swear, they're going to try to get the world to revert back to a religion of, old pagan-style worship, Mother Gaia, the sun god. I mean, the reverence in their messaging is quite something to behold. But one aspect really stood out.
Trying to save the tropical savanna.
Yes. And we've also restored mangroves in Colombia.
What else?
Grasslands in Kenya.
Why?
Our aim is to permanently remove carbon from the atmosphere.
And I quote, "Our aim is to permanently remove carbon from the atmosphere." So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would kill everyone and everything. And they must know that, right? Which begs the question, what the hell is happening? I'm starting to think that they are going to remove carbon from the atmosphere, and once plants start to die, they're going to blame climate change. And then the next step would be to release carbon back into the atmosphere. Vegetation comes back. And then they'll take credit for it and say they saved the world from climate change. I mean, we even had Biden recently talk about vacuuming carbon directly out of the atmosphere. They are out of their minds. All of this would be pretty damn funny if it wasn't so dangerously stupid. Okay, so let's move on. And so you might be asking yourself, what else ties into this global plan? Well, the immigration crisis is way out of control. We kind of talked about it in the last video, Fortress World, with some clips of what's happening on that Italian island. Okay, so there is a reason for the facilitation of mass migration. With all the chaos we are seeing throughout the entire world related to this exact problem. Now, you probably saw a lot of stuff about what's happening in Italy, what's happening on the southern border, but this is happening all across the Western world. It is coordinated. And so Joe Biden unleashed his plan for immigration. And would it stem the flood? Of course not. So let's go over his quote-unquote plan, and then I'll tell you how I kind of see this playing out. So, this is the plan, and I quote, Number 1, fast-track processing at the US border. Number 2, expand legal pathways. Number 3, increase the total number of refugees. Number 4, send money to help sanctuary cities. Number 5, speed up work permits for illegals. End of quote. That's Joe Biden's plan. Joe Biden is basically admitting that the southern border is wide open on purpose to give businesses access to cheap labor. Now, George Soros and Klaus Schwab are on record demanding the end of the nation state, and immigration is a method that they can use to strip away that sovereignty. Now, maybe we should ask ourselves, how could the migrant crisis be used to further this kind of global government concept? Well, personally, I can see it happen in 10 steps. So, okay, just keep in mind this is a very simplistic list. Each aspect could have numerous paths and steps. But I'm trying to keep it simple for a reason. I'm just trying to illustrate something. Number 1, continue adding climate and pandemic control measures that apply to all aspects of life. Number 2, facilitate mass migration to various Western nations. Now, this is where it gets pretty crazy. The UN states that this migration crisis is actually a plan to deal with the aging population and population decline. Yes, you heard that correctly. In this document, you can see that question being proposed highlighted in blue. However, let's get to what's highlighted in yellow. And I quote, replacement migration for 8 low-fertility countries, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Russia, the UK, and the United States. So they actually go on to say that migration is determined by which countries are seeing population decline. And in their eyes, this is a remedy for population decline. Yes, so they are pushing people to have less kids. They are poisoning people to affect fertility. They claim all of this is for climate change, and once they have destroyed reproduction, they ship in people as a way to maintain labor. That's some evil stuff. However, those are just steps 1 and 2. Let's go to number 3. Destabilize society through various methods, including immigration. Number 4. Issue IDs to incoming immigrants, which they just did or are actively trying to do. The next step, number 5, would be to transition this ID system into a digital ID for everybody, otherwise known as world IDs, using rampant immigration and crime waves as the reason for needing this. Now, if war happens, that would be a perfect route for them to assign everyone a digital ID. I mean, you do have to keep track of your citizens and make sure there's no spies running around, right? Number 6, continue implementing UN resolutions for governance. Number 7, the capital that transnational corporations acquire through public-private partnerships exceeds that of most nation-states. If you look around, some of these international corporations have more GDP growth than actual countries. Which is why, number 8, they want to codify stakeholder capitalism into law. Number 9, after they do that, nation-states are now irrelevant. And that brings us to step number 10. Welcome to global governance. So, now that we're caught up on everything, let me know what you think. But until next time, once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. As always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and yes, I do hope you have a good night.